Welcome everybody to another episode of the Dragonus Podcastus. I am your host, Dead Ponic. With me again is Queen Byron. Um, Also, Queen Byron, do you want to tell us the good news? Like, what's going on with our what's going on here?
Well, it's exciting, that's for sure, but I think you should explain it.
Yeah. It's our 20th episode of the Dragonus Podcastus. Yay!
Hey.
Yeah. And as per tradition of this podcast show, the host will give the partner in crime, so to speak, a armor set and weapon. Now we're gonna do something special for that, but this is just to say thank you for helping me out, for being part of the process, and basically without you or without your involvement, this would not be possible. I cannot do an episode, like I can't do a podcast by myself. I mean, I could, but it just wouldn't work. So this episode, we are doing something incredibly special, and we are covering the Sisters of Valkyria. And I think it's important to say, like, um, now, yes, it is true that there are women warriors and all that in D&D, and there are women, like, warrior women organizations within the context of D&D, but I feel like my world needed a little bit more representation, a little bit more badassery, because I've already got a Wonder Woman-esque figure, and I've got, well, Xena running around doing her thing, but I wanted to give a little more representation, and also because I'm a big Warhammer fan, and I was kind of inspired by the Sisters of Battle. Except the Sisters of Valkyria are not super religious nuns. They're not zealotous in any capacity. Anyway, so they are an order of women warriors who serve the Valkyrie deity Valkyria. Um, and they take up defending life and providing comfort to the dying in her name. And this concept comes from the idea of the Valkyrie, who is generally depicted as an angel and usually also a woman who glides into the battlefield and grants the dying or dead passage into Valhalla, which is the Nordic afterlife. And a lot of some, if not most, D&D campaigns that I've seen have been based around the Nordic idea. Like, there's a lot of like Frost. There's like Viking-esque civilizations, and Skyrim's also a good example of this too. It's kind of the most modern version of D&D that I can think of, anyway. But um, they and Valhalla is basically the heaven, which is specifically for warriors who have died in battle honorably. And the sisters operate differently, and they believe in order to ascend and become a true Valkyrie, like Valkyria did, which is a true angel, they need to perform four tasks, which is grant the worthy dead passage into Valhalla, purge any affront into life, which includes shadows, demons, and the morally corrupt, protect the royal family, specifically the queen and any daughters of the royal family. So they are the opposite number to the Solarus Knights, where the Solarus Knights protect the king and the sons. The sisters will protect the queen and the daughters, and they often work together, which is important because the Solarus Knights, they do have female members, but most of the time it's very rare. But um, most women who decide they want to protect the king and dedicate their lives to protecting the king will join the sisters. And then the final thing is to recruit and train the next generation of sisters and teach them the vow of the angel. And now their founding comes from the events in Valkyria's life. And Valkyria was once immortal, and she had a different name, but it's been lost to time, which they really should learn to write things down, or at least keep a record or something like that. Anyway, so she lived a quiet life in a village which was a few miles away from the great lake city of Taun. However, Once a week, the village would come under attack by raiders seeking supplies, and they offered the village and the elder an ultimatum: hand over a portion of the supplies that they had, whatever they could gather, and hand it over. And they do that each week, and they wouldn't burn the village to the ground. And Valkyria had to witness this for until at least she was 18 years old. And at that point, a new village elder had been chosen, and he took it upon himself to stand in defiance against the raiders. And basically, he would have the village put whatever supplies they had at the edge of the village, and they could collect it there. But they were not allowed to set foot in the village. And the leader of the raiders, he didn't like this, and he actually killed the elder, stating he would be back next week as usual to collect it within the village. And Valkyria was not impressed with this, and she set out in search for a way to stand up to the raiders and maybe possibly scare them off so that they wouldn't attack their village again. Valkyria came across an ancient temple slash castle deep in the jungle, and this is where she receives training from the one called the Giver of Light. This is also where she learned about the Valkyries and what their job is, basically. And so she receives this newfound power, and her teacher warns that because her powers are just starting to manifest, she won't have 100% control over them, and she may accidentally kill the people she's trying to protect. And Valkyria sort of ignores this and goes back to the village the day before the raiders would return again. And she went through 6 weeks of training, keep in mind. And the raiders enter the village perimeter on their warhounds, or war beasts, and they charge in, and Valkyria steps forward and declares that they will no longer take supplies and harass the people of the village. The raider leader is naturally not pleased that he's being defied by the village again, let alone a lone woman rather than a man. And so he orders the raiders to burn the village to the ground and kill everybody. And this is when Valkyria unleashes her powers for the first time. The wave of holy energy disintegrated all the raiders, but just as the Giver had predicted, it ended up also killing some of the villagers, with only 50 out of the original 205 surviving. And so Valkyria finally understood the Giver's final lesson, and then the Giver appears and told her that her true task was not to just defend the innocent, but to grant last rites to those who died honorably, and that she was to found an order that would preach this, or teach this more. So naturally, Valkyria was kind of pissed that she inadvertently killed half her village, but because she was using her powers for vengeance and revenge, those negative emotions manifested and backfired on the innocent, and that's why all those people died. That was the Giver's final lesson. It was never to use her gifts in anger or for vengeance. And then later on in life, she was involved in the campaign against the King of Agnos, and was one of the people who sealed the Witch King of Agnos in the ancient crypt that was protected by powerful spells. She was the one who casted one of those spells so that he couldn't escape being reincarnated and wreak havoc. And it was this act that allowed Valkyrie to ascend and become a true Valkyrie. But before she did that, she sought out 6 women and made them the founding members of the Sisters of Valkyria. And she took them to the capital of Tor, and they set up a temple. And these 6 women are known as ladies rather than saints, or mothers, or sisters. The sisters are actually the soldiers, the ones that go out, and the ladies are kind of the ones in charge. And each of them wields one of the artifacts that Valkyria used in her wars against Agnos and the demons. So there are 6 of them. There's 5. Sorry, 5. There's Lucia, Angela, Mia, Miria, and Susanna. So we'll talk about Lucia first. Lucia is the mightiest of the warrior women. She is also known for her kindness, empathy towards animals and children, and her direct and straightforward approach to justice. She wields Valkyria's holy sword, and is considered to be the most powerful magical sword in this world, besides maybe Excalibur, except Excalibur is in the lake, and nobody is worthy to wield it just yet. And she has her own daughter, who she loves like dearly, and when she isn't at the temple or guarding the queen or the queen's daughters, she is often tending to the temple's flower beds or schooling the children, not just the orphans in the temple, but most of the children in Tor. And quote, there's a quote from Lucia herself. If one of my children is threatened, Dragon Lord, show mercy to those that dare to challenge me, for I shall show the ones who hurt my children none, as they are consumed in pure holy light, and their souls are sent straight to hell to await eternal damnation. And so King Fair actually has massive respect for her because of how devoted she is to protecting not just him and his wife, but the citizens of Tor. And he was the one who said, "Yeah, you can be the guardians of the queen and any daughters." So next, and yeah, she wields the holy sword. Next up is Lady Angela. Lady Angela is, in terms of holy power, she is the most powerful. She commands the most authority from the mages and the other clerics, and she is highly respected. All the ladies are respected by King Fair, but she is the most respected. But the deed that made her most famous is what happened at the Lake City of Taun. There's two things that actually happened. So, Lady Angela was sent to Taun because she heard that the warriors, manifestations of the shadow and corrupted, were attacking the city and terrorizing the citizens. So she goes and meets with the city mayor, who explains everything, and she tells the mayor to order all citizens to shelter in their homes. Night approaches, and rank upon rank of these shadow warriors manifest and begin marching upon the city. And she stands in front of them, and with the Valkyria spear, which is the spear of angels, she shouts into the night. Actually, do you want to read the quote? Would you like to read the quote?
Sure.
Okay, it's the second one, like we discussed.
I am a servant of the Lady Angel, wielder of the light of Valhalla. The dark powers will not avail you, Flame of Un. Return to your master, creatures of shadow.
Very nice. Anyway, she does the whole "you shall not pass" thing from Lord of the Rings, but instead of destroying a bridge and sundering the earth, she enacts a holy shield that dematerializes anything that is a manifest of the Shadow Realm or considered evil. And for this, the citizens of Taun basically started worshipping her as a deity, but she declined this, stating that it was her duty to protect against the shadows and defend the innocent. And no one should bow to her, as she doesn't recognize herself as a deity, so she is quite humble in that. And after that was done, she was also asked to tame or at least calm a beast that occasionally would rise from the lake, and the children would give it fish, and then it would go back into the lake. However, when the shadows came and were terrorizing the town, the beast was starting to scare people because it was being driven insane by it. So Angela seeks it out, and it turns out it's the Loch Ness Monster herself, Nessie. And so Angela communes with Nessie and calms her down and asks that Nessie basically protect the lake, because it turns out the lake of Taun is actually where Excalibur is hidden. And Nessie herself is actually the guardian of the lake and of the sword. So Nessie agrees to this as long as she can visit the village and spend time with the children. And that's how she was able to. So the Loch Ness Monster does exist in this world. Although it doesn't breathe fire, it is quite intimidating. And and then after that's done, she goes back to Tor and does what she does best. That holy shield that was she enacted is still active to this day. And her pastimes include horseback riding and taking care of horses, and reading dwarven and elven literature, and competing in the Sumerian summer tournament. Now, we're gonna divide up the episode, but the last one I want to talk about is Lady Miria. She's the most in tune with the wildlife and flora, so she's kind of like a cleric druid hybrid, but she understands nature on a level that would make a druid blush. Dare to say, if she wasn't a cleric or she wasn't a sister, she would definitely be a druid. And she gets really pissed off if she finds an animal who was killed cruelly or is treated badly. And the best example of this is that she found a unicorn who was shot with a poison arrow, and she had to put it out of its misery while crying buckets of tears because it was suffering, and it was better to end its suffering rather than let it, continue to suffer until it finally died. And so she tracked the one who killed it to a tavern. And now, keep in mind, Lady Myria, comparing her to the rest of the Founding Sisters, was stated by Valkyria to be one of the most beautiful women ever conceived. She gives Helen of Troy a run for her money in terms of beauty, but she doesn't use that as like a way to take advantage of people. It's more natural beauty because she's so in tune with nature, and nature decided they were going to basically make her beautiful. So she walks into the tavern and she overhears one of the patrons bragging to his three buddies that he barely survived being impaled by a unicorn, and he managed to hit it with an arrow, and that was enough for it to flee. Myria goes up to the bartender and orders 2 drinks, one for her and one for the patron. Keep in mind, Lady Myria does not drink in any capacity. She does not drink any alcohol in any capacity. So she then goes up to that patron and slams the poison arrow into the guy's hand. But the poison was gone from the arrow, so it was relatively harmless. And she casually downs her shot and slowly pours the patron's drink onto his wounded hand. It's like that scene from the Wolverine, where Wolverine basically had to kill a bear, and then he tracks the guy down, and then it plays out like that a little bit. And so she says that poison arrows are illegal in the Shar Kingdom, and anyone who kills a beast with one is subject to a 5,000 gold piece fine and a year in prison for animal cruelty. And also illegal game hunting, because the unicorns are protected under Shar game law. So this guy is in massive trouble, and his 3 friends try to attack Myria, but she casually kicks their asses with her battle staff. And so she rips the poison arrow out, knocks him out, and drags him all the way to the games warden's office and tells the game warden to write the guy up and book him. And so, since she's widely respected, she's kind of like the Snow White of this world. Actually, she's not as like ditzy and all that. But when wildlife is threatened, she doesn't screw around. And the game warden is also friends with her and respects her for that devotion to protecting wildlife, and so he writes the guy up and books him. And so on her way back to the capital, she encounters what I can only describe as the most beautiful horse imaginable. And this horse basically is kind of like Shadowfax, in that it can carry a rider without a saddle. It doesn't need a saddle, it doesn't need a bridle. And it carried her all the way to the capital, and she took it in and cared for it. But the horse encountered another being and decided that it wanted to be that person's horse, and Myria basically let it go with the stranger. And that person is actually Fern, who we're going to cover in another episode. And the artifact that Valkyria gave to her is the Nature's Embrace Gauntlet, which is a gauntlet made from animal pelts and sinew and hardened wood, but is just as strong as a steel gauntlet and provides healing herbs when needed. And the blade guards are actually strong as those of a gullybarg. And she has a pet pig named Beaky. And I swear, I'm not making this up, but it's a battle pig, so it knows an ancient art known exclusively by the pig people, known as pork foo. And I swear to God, if the comment section starts making any bacon jokes, I'm gonna lose it.
No bacon jokes, people. You got that?
Yeah. Beaky doesn't like when people make bacon jokes. It's pork jokes are fine, but bacon jokes no. Anyway, so that's part 1 of this episode.
Sisters of Valkyria.
Yes. So far, what do you think? What are your thoughts so far?
I absolutely love the Sisters of Valkyria. I've played, strong fighter characters in the past who were women, and I would have loved to have them part of an ancient order of, badass warriors who supported each other. I think that's a fantastic idea. I'd love to play as a character, a Sister of Valkyria. That would be amazing.
Well, you're in luck. So after we do the where you get your armor, we're actually going to be doing a small role playing session where you get your armor from George the dwarf. He's actually really nice, by the way, despite what um so most people will tell you. But after you get your armor and your weapon, um, you actually are invited to be knighted, or yeah, I guess knighted. You could either become a Solarus Knight or you could become a member of the Sisters. And you will
That sounds really cool.
yeah, and you will take the name of Lady, and you'll get all the benefits of that. So you get your own, like you get a small castle, or so. What's the not a castle, but the level below that. It's like a villa or something. I don't.
Keep?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So you get your own keep. You get tax exemption, and you get a salary, a set salary every week, and also you are also invited into the king's court. So as a sister of Valkyria, you would take the vow of the angel, and you would dedicate your life to protecting not just the queen and the daughters, but also the royal family in general. And also you are dedicating yourself to protecting the citizens of the kingdom of Shar. So something to consider. Um,
That's very
so
cool.
the two ladies that we've talked about so far, um, who would you say is your favorite? Or was it two? Oh, it was three. Sorry. So, um, who would you say out of the three so far is your favorite?
Definitely the one who's in tune with nature. I think that's really cool. Is that
Oh,
Maria?
yeah, Miria. Yeah. Also, she
Sorry,
doesn't.
Miria.
Yeah, she doesn't wear like boots or shoes. So she's always
Mhm.
barefooted, which is really cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's actually my favorite next to Angela. Angela is my absolute favorite out of the sisters because she's just awesome, and also because Loch Ness monster.
Mm-hmm. Very
Uh,
cool.
yeah, and so next time we're going to talk about let's see here. We're going to talk about uh Lady Mia, and finally we're going to talk about Susanna, and then we'll talk about how they the minor details and the spells and powers that they have, and um kind of what their rules are. Actually, we'll quickly talk about that just quickly. Um, Men are allowed to join the Sisters of Valkyria, but they cannot become Valkyries because Valkyries are generally accepted to be a role that women occupy, and that's part of the mythology. But they can become what is known as Knight Brothers, or they can join the Solarus Knights. But they carry out the same tasks as the sisters, but they cannot ascend to become Valkyries. But instead, they are rewarded for their service by being granted immortality and the ability to transform into one of three animals: a boar, a tiger, or a raven. And they are the ones who maintain the sisters' armor and weapons, and maintain the temple's structural integrity, and do most of the other important tasks. And also are in charge of protecting the temple in times of war. And no man may enter the temple without express permission from one of the ladies or without escort, as it is considered holy ground. And any man who sets foot in the temple who is not recognized as a knight brother, or is not given permission to do so, or is not under escort, is considered heresy and blasphemy. And tieflings, because they are demonic by in nature and by design, they are not generally welcome in the temple unless they are given permission, and unless they're given some kind of like insurance to make sure that they don't immolate from holy fire. It's a fascinating story. Anyway,
Yeah.
so next week that's what we're gonna do. So thank you so much for listening. We will be back next week. Queen Byron, is there anything you would like to say before we end the episode?
Stay spooky.
Yep, stay spooky. Yeah. Anyway, see you guys later.